China's strict zero-COVID regime has saved many lives, but has also slowed the country's economy. It has exacerbated the supply chain disruptions and kept millions under lockdown for months. China's government and other investment banks had earlier predicted that its economy would grow by 5.5% in 2022 if the COVID-19 restrictions were lifted. But China's economy is now expected to grow closer to 3.3% this year, and this will likely cost $384 billion in lost GDP. However, despite strict lockdown measures, China on Friday reported the highest daily count of new local COVID cases in the last 6 months. This has further pushed policymakers to walk a finer line between holding the virus at bay while also keeping a lid on social and economic angst. According to data released by the National Health Commission, the new locally transmitted cases rose to 3,871, which is the highest since early May when Shanghai was fighting its worst outbreak and Beijing was scrambling to contain one. According to research, there are two indicators that are shaking the Chinese economy. First, the fragile state of China's housing market. According to reports, China's home prices sank for a 13th month in September. And the second factor is how the United States has recently blocked China's access to advanced semiconductor chips. The International Monetary Fund has also cut its 2022 and 2023 economic growth forecast for China. The International Financial Institution has said China's zero-COVID policy has taken a toll on the economy. Meanwhile, Beijing is sticking firm to its zero-COVID policy and showing no intentions or signs of changing it anytime soon. China faces a number of geopolitical rifts as well that have impacted its economic ties with its top trading partners. US-Chinese relations are at their lowest point in decades. The ties have been strained by disputes over technology, security, Taiwan and human rights.
China will in the future have a harder time leveraging global markets as the US and advanced economies, are making this a little bit harder. And as more generally, China's relations with the outside world are becoming more strained. And as many economies are putting in place measures to basically hinder Chinese exports to these foreign markets. It's not just the US.
For more on this story, we're now joined by Simon Lee, Honorary Fellow at the Asia Pacific Institute of Business. Mr. Lee, thanks so much for speaking to WION. Now, concerns are being expressed about this very strict COVID restrictions that have been in place in China for months now. It's so-called zero-COVID policy taking a heavy toll on the country's economy. We've also seen how so many people have complained about how it's adversely impacted their life. But talking about the economy, isn't that a matter of grave concern for the Chinese establishment?
Now, I think there will be some changes. Why I say so? Because, correctly, we could say a dynamic zero COVID policy. Now, with the conclusion of the 20th Congress of the Communist Party, things may be tuned a little bit flexible. And we see that with the new cabinets will come into office in March, there may be some change. I heard, for example, we see that now people need to undergo the very strict quarantine, but today I heard some news from the mainland people that such quarantine period may be shortened. Another point I would like to highlight is that there is a strict central policy, and then when it is implemented at provincial or city level, they need to follow it even stricter. Otherwise, the official position cannot be kept. So I think for the time being, the government official and the central authority, they need to find a way out. I'm not too negative on the economic prospect because there's still a huge domestic market. I think the central authority, they know some of the chaos we saw on the internet regarding the closure of the plants, people exodus, and also the closure at Shanghai Disneyland. But it takes time for the central government to follow a more powerful policy in order to continue the economic growth.
Okay, Mr. Lee, you're saying you would not be too concerned about China's economic growth, but fact of the matter is the government has said time and again that they're going to stick with this zero COVID policy. And despite these stringent measures being in place, China has actually seen a spike in COVID cases recently, and therefore at the moment there are no signs that the government is going to relent in any way. Now look at some figures. The Chinese government itself and many investment banks in that country had earlier predicted that the country's economy would grow by 5.5% this year. That estimate has now been revised to 3.3%. That would mean $384 billion in lost GDP. Even the International Monetary Fund has revised its projection for China's economy downwards. Do you not believe that things will only get worse as China sees a further spike in cases, as I just pointed out?
Yes, I believe so. Now, that 5.5 cannot be achieved, definitely. But if we look at the other side of the story, is that about the medical costs. Now, the vaccination rate in China is still not very high. You know, that China still not still reject the foreign vaccines, and then we see that it takes time and they're quite costly to import the foreign vaccine. Foreign vaccine, I think, is very effective, it's proven, but then it's a kind of political decision. So comparing the loss in economic growth and also the medical costs, I think they are now thinking a way out from all sources. So on one hand, it's still claim that it stick to the zero COVID policy, but you know things in China can be changed in 1 or 2 days because it's pushed by the central government. So compare with the cost and also the economic slowdown, economic growth, I think they are finding a way out in the coming few months. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not too negative on that. I'm not so pessimistic on that. But the longer the government is delaying such decision, then there will be the harder blow to the economic growth. So I think maybe from now to before March, there will be some change in the policy, because now with the new cabinet in place, they are now formulating new action plan.
Okay, new cabinet in place will put in force its action plan, but are we really going to see China change its COVID policy with an eye on the economy? We will really have to wait and see if that indeed does happen. But thanks very much, Simon Lee, for sharing your perspective with WION.